In May 2024, a deadly silence. 11 residents faced a massive wall of black debris that swallowed their neighborhoods. But no one realized the incoming storm was wider than the town itself. 30 seconds of concentrated atmospheric fury erased $250 million of modern engineering. Survivors emerged into a pulverized landscape of splintered history they no longer recognized. On May 21, 2024, the air in Greenfield turned a bruised shade of violet before the world simply ceased to exist. At approximately 3:45 p.m., a tornado with official wind speeds of 185 miles per hour, though mobile radars recorded staggering gusts over 300 miles per hour, sliced through the heart of the community. In the time it takes to draw a breath, the town's hospital was shredded, and 153 family homes were reduced to a fine gray powder. The impact lasted only 30 seconds, yet it finalized a bill of $31.8 million in property damage. This was not an isolated tragedy, but a haunting prelude to the June 20, 2025 disaster in Enderlin, North Dakota. There, an EF5 vortex with 210-mile-per-hour winds swept farmsteads so clean that not even the anchor bolts remained in the concrete. As of March 16, 2026, the United States has already recorded 263 confirmed tornadoes, including the March 10th strike that decimated Lake Village, Indiana, where an elderly couple lost their lives in a house that simply disintegrated. These events represent a terrifying new normal but a single radar reading from Greenfield simply didn't make sense. The sheer speed of these erasure events is challenging everything we thought we knew about storm survival and structural integrity. In Greenfield and Enderlin, the devastation didn't just break buildings. It fundamentally altered the geography of the American Midwest in less time than it takes to change a television channel. Survivors walk through empty lots where their lives were stored, looking for evidence of a world that, to understand how a community can simply vanish in the time it takes to draw a few ragged breaths, one must look deep into the physics of the atmosphere. Meteorologists call it a high-risk setup, a volatile recipe of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico colliding with dry desert air along a sharpening dry line. In 2024, the United States saw this recipe play out with terrifying frequency, recording 1,882 confirmed tornadoes, which stands as these storms are fueled by convective available potential energy, or CAPE, which acts as the high-octane gasoline for the supercell engine. But the true monster lies in the wind shear, the invisible twisting force that rotates these towering updrafts until they become a grinding gear against the earth. For decades, we relied on the original Fujita scale to measure this power, but in February 2007, just months before Greensburg was leveled, the system evolved into the enhanced Fujita scale. This new metric prioritized specific damage indicators over raw wind estimates. Yet the events of 2024 and 2025 have pushed this science to its breaking point. But there was one detail that didn't make sense, and no one noticed it yet. The Greenfield, Iowa tornado of May 21st, 2024, became the primary flashpoint for this scientific debate. While the National Weather Service officially rated the event an EF4 based on a 185-mile-per-hour damage survey, data from the flexible array of radars and mesonets, or FARM, told a far more haunting story. Their mobile radar units captured wind speeds between 309 and 318 miles per hour, just feet above the ground. If those numbers were officially adopted, Greenfield would have been the strongest tornado ever recorded by modern instruments. This massive discrepancy has sparked a fierce ongoing review within NOAA as of April 2026, as experts grapple with whether the EF scale is failing to accurately categorize the sheer violence of these 30-second erasures. Then came June 20th, 2025, when the atmosphere produced the unthinkable in Enderlin, North Dakota. This EF5 beast, packing official winds of 210 miles per hour, ended a 12-year drought of the highest possible rating in the United States. It swept farmstead foundations entirely clean, leaving behind nothing but scarred earth and a renewed sense of dread for the current 2026 season. By March 16th of this year, 263 tornadoes have already been confirmed across the country, suggesting that the traditional boundaries of Tornado Alley are shifting and intensifying. We are no longer just tracking seasonal storms, we are witnessing the birth of atmospheric engines capable of erasing a century of human progress in less time than it takes to seek shelter in a basement. In the fading light of May 4th, 2007, the atmosphere over Kiowa County reached a breaking point as a dry line ignited the prairie sky. By 8 p.m., supercell thunderstorms began to churn with a violent, rotating energy that signaled a rare meteorological monster was breathing to life. At 9 p.m., a tornado warning blared across the flatlands, but the true scale of the threat was meteorologist Mike Smith recognized the signature on his screen immediately, issuing urgent early warnings that would ultimately be the difference between life and death for hundreds of residents. By 9:41 p.m., the sirens in Greensburg began their mournful wail, competing with the sudden What the people of Greensburg saw as they looked toward the south was not a funnel, but a solid black horizon, a wedge tornado 1.7 miles wide, broader than the town it was about to consume. At 9:45 p.m., the EF5 vortex, packing winds of 205 miles per hour, crossed the southern city limits. For those huddled in basements and storm cellars, the sound was not like a train, but like the earth itself was being torn apart. Within 5 minutes, the core of the storm reached the downtown district, where the world's largest hand-dug well and the historic water tower stood. But what investigators discovered next changed everything regarding how we understand tornado survivability. They found that in just 30 to 60 seconds of direct impact, nearly every structure in the town's path was simply erased. As the debris cloud enveloped the street grid, 1,400 homes and businesses, 95% of the town, were pulverized into a chaotic mulch of wood, brick, and steel. By 9:55 p.m., the monster exited the north side of town, leaving behind in the pitch black. Sheriff Lonnie McCollum and his deputies began the search for survivors among the ruins of a town that had, for all intents and purposes, ceased to exist. As the roar of the vortex finally faded into the distance, an unnatural, suffocating silence descended upon the ruins of Greensburg. It was 10 p.m. on May 4th, 2007, and the town, as it had been known for over a century, simply ceased to exist. Kiowa County Sheriff Lonnie McCollum stepped out into a landscape that was entirely unrecognizable, devoid of the familiar shapes of houses and trees. The streetlights were gone, and the landmarks that guided local life for generations had been ground into dust. The very grid of the town had been erased, replaced by a jagged, impassable mountain of debris that reached the height of second-story windows in some places and was swept clean to the foundation in others. In the pitch black, punctuated only by the flickering of lightning and the pungent, terrifying smell of ruptured natural gas lines, McCollum and a handful of survivors, they navigated by handheld flashlights, climbing over twisted metal and splintered timber to reach the spots where they knew storm cellars and basements were located. They were not looking for buildings anymore. Those had been pulverized. They were listening for voices muffled by tons of debris and praying that the reinforced shelters had held against the 205-mile-per-hour winds. The scale of the destruction was near total, with 95% of the town's 1,400 buildings leveled to the ground. First responders found themselves performing emergency triage and trauma surgery on kitchen tables by candlelight because the town's hospital was a skeletal ruin and the entire communication infrastructure had been obliterated. There were no phones, no radios, and no power for miles. Yet amidst this absolute devastation, a unique Mayor Bob Dixon and City Administrator Steve Hewitt realized that the old Greensburg could never be brought back. So they made a decision that would redefine the town's legacy, to rebuild from the mud as a model for the future. Within days, the City Council issued a historic nation-leading mandate that every single city-owned building would be rebuilt to LEED Platinum standards, the highest possible level of environmental certification. Greensburg would not just return, it would be reborn as the first city in the United States to be powered by 100% renewable energy, turning the very winds that had destroyed it into a source of life through a massive nearby wind farm. This ambitious green initiative transformed the tragedy into a global case study for sustainable resilience, resulting in a world-class eco-friendly hospital and state-of-the-art community facilities that became the envy of the region. However, the physical beauty of the new town could not fully mask the heavy human toll. By the time of the 2020 census, the population had plummeted to roughly 740 people, barely half of its pre-storm size, leaving behind a beautiful, sustainable, yet hauntingly quiet ghost of the community that once was. Residents had realized that while you can rebuild a house with green materials, you cannot so easily replace the fabric of a vanished neighborhood. But the most devastating revelation was still to come. The sirens that echoed through the American heartland in early 2026 were more than mere warnings. They were a grim confirmation that the era of the town. As of mid-March 2026, the United States has already recorded 263 confirmed tornadoes, leaving 11 people dead and hundreds of families without homes. The devastation seen in Union City, Michigan, where a powerful EF3 stripped houses from their foundations on March 6th, and the decimation of Lake Village, Indiana, just 4 days later, underscore a terrifying trend. These recent tragedies have reignited a critical scientific debate within the National Weather Service and the flexible array of radars and mesonets. Following the horrific Greenfield strike in 2024 and the Enderlin EF5 in 2025, experts are grappling with a massive discrepancy between ground-based damage surveys and what mobile radar is actually measuring in the heart of the vortex. In Greenfield, while the official rating remained a high-end EF4 based on structural failure, mobile radar data captured wind speeds as high as 318 miles per hour, measurements that technically dwarf the traditional thresholds of the EF5. This push to include radar-derived wind speeds in official ratings represents the most significant shift in tornado science in nearly 2 decades. Yet for survivors on the ground, the immediate concern is not the rating, but the recovery. Today, April 3rd, 2026, marks a somber milestone as the clock runs out for those affected by the late 2025 storms in Alaska. The midnight deadline for FEMA individual assistance and SBA loans is a final, stressful hurdle. In Michigan, the wait continues as FEMA officials review the request for a major disaster declaration filed by Governor Whitmer just 2 days ago. The struggle for aid is further complicated by a documented and drastic depletion of the Disaster Relief Fund as of early 2026, leaving the speed of future recovery efforts in a state of perilous uncertainty pending congressional action. But the most devastating revelation was still to come regarding the long-term. Even with the world-class LEED Platinum rebuilding efforts seen in Greensburg, Kansas, the community serves as a cautionary tale. The 2020 census showed a population that had shrunk by nearly 50% since the sky. The enduring lesson is that while humanity can rebuild a town to be stronger, more sustainable, and powered by the very wind that once destroyed it, the psychological and demographic scars of a 30-second erasure can last for generations. We must continue to refine our warning systems, modernize our meteorological scales, and fortify our federal safety nets before the next cycle. We owe it to the victims to learn from their tragedy. Subscribe, share this to spread awareness.